The candles flickered in the darkened dining room as everyone leaned closer, their smiles wide, their laughter sharp. It was my birthday, but somehow I already felt like an intruder at my own celebration. The cake sat in the center of the table, not chosen for me, not decorated for me, not even the flavor I liked. My sister, Amanda, had picked it out. She sat with her elbows on the table, her grin cocky, daring me to complain. I leaned in toward the cake, my breath trembling, ready to blow out the candles. But before I could take in the moment, before I could whisper even a silent wish, my mother's hand shot forward. She shoved the cake closer to my face, tilted it just so, and leaned the flames against my hair. The hot wax dripped as the tips of the candles brushed my strands. The smell of burning filled the air. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video. "Better fire burn her than waste the cake," Mom sneered, her voice slicing through the room. For a moment I froze. Heat licked against my head, my scalp tingling, panic rising. My hand slapped frantically at my hair, extinguishing the sparks before they spread, but the room didn't gasp in shock. They laughed. My father slapped the table so hard the forks rattled. Amanda nearly fell out of her chair, tears of laughter in her eyes. "Did you see her face?" Dad barked, pounding his chest with mirth, like a rat caught in a trap. "Blow harder next time, garbage," Amanda added, holding her phone like she was ready to record if I made a scene. My cheeks burned hotter than the fire had, my throat closed. It was supposed to be my day, a rare moment to feel acknowledged, to feel like maybe I mattered in this house. And instead, they had turned it into a carnival where I was the clown, the freak they jeered at, the one whose pain was the entertainment. I glanced at the cake, its perfect frosting still untouched. Not a single decoration on it represented me. It was Amanda's favorite, strawberry cream with gold trimmings. My name wasn't even written across the top, just happy birthday in generic letters, as if they couldn't be bothered. Mom leaned back, folding her arms. "Don't sulk. If your hair caught fire, maybe you'd finally be useful for once. At least you'd smell less like nothing." Dad smirked, adding, "Consider it a gift. Free reminder. Life doesn't owe you even a slice." I sat there, trembling, while the laughter drowned me. Every pair of eyes watched my humiliation. Every chuckle pressed me deeper into the dirt. They didn't see a daughter. They didn't see a sister. They didn't even see a human. To them, I was fuel. Something to burn, something to waste, something to mock. Amanda reached forward and plucked the first slice of cake for herself, licking the icing from her fork with exaggerated delight. Delicious. Definitely worth more than your birthday, sis. I couldn't eat. I couldn't speak. My throat felt scorched, not from the fire, but from swallowing the truth. The truth that in their eyes I didn't belong. And as I sat there, my ruined strands sticking out, the faint, acrid smell of burned hair around me, I made a vow. That laughter, their laughter, would not echo forever. I would make sure the same voices that mocked me tonight would one day beg for silence. I stayed quiet, staring at the cake, memorizing their smirks, their careless cruelty. The humiliation burned deeper than any flame, and behind my stillness, a seed of revenge began to grow. The smell of burnt hair clung to me for days, like a mark I couldn't scrub off no matter how hard I tried. Every time I caught the faint acrid scent, it reminded me of that night. My so-called birthday, my so-called family, their laughter rising higher than the smoke that curled from my hair. The house didn't let me forget either. Amanda made sure of that. She strutted down the hallway with the confidence of someone who had the world on a leash. Every morning she'd toss her long, untouched curls in my face and smirk. "Careful," she'd whisper, brushing past me. "Don't stand too close to the stove. We wouldn't want another accident." Mom overheard once, and instead of scolding her, she chuckled. She should be grateful we didn't throw the whole cake on her head. At least she got to be part of it. Part of it. As though humiliation was a gift. The days blurred after that. Each one a new opportunity for them to remind me I wasn't worth the air I breathed. Dad, always loud and heavy-handed, had taken to calling me Candlewick. It was his new joke. "Move faster, Candlewick," he'd bark as I washed the dishes. "Don't want you dripping wax all over the floor." Amanda would howl with laughter from the couch, scrolling on her phone. Sometimes she'd make the sound of blowing out candles just to watch me flinch. And Mom carried the cruelty with elegance. She didn't need to shout like Dad or sneer like Amanda. She only needed to look at me, her lips curling into the faintest of smirks, to let me know exactly where I stood. Beneath her, beneath all of them, beneath even the dirt on their shoes. Every meal was another trial. They served Amanda first, piling her plate with meat, with fresh bread, with everything warm and whole. By the time the dish reached me, the scraps were cold, thin, and almost mocking in their smallness. "Don't look so down," Mom would say, sipping her wine. "A mouse doesn't complain about crumbs." Dad added once, "Besides, if you eat too much, Candlewick, you'll just weigh down the family more than you already do." I clenched my fists so tight my nails dug crescents into my palms, but I never spoke back. My silence was their favorite sport. They mistook it for weakness, for obedience, for proof that I was the lesser. But silence, I realized, was a weapon. A blade being sharpened each time I swallowed their insults. The neighborhood knew nothing. To them, we were the perfect family. Dad, the hardworking provider. Mom, the sharp but charming matriarch. Amanda, the golden daughter who could do no wrong. And me? I was the shadow that didn't get mentioned. I was the figure cropped out of family photos. Until one afternoon. It was weeks after the birthday fire incident. I was sweeping the porch when Dad stepped outside, phone pressed to his ear. His voice was loud, boastful. "Yeah, Amanda just got accepted into the university program. Of course, we'll cover everything. She deserves it. That other one?" His eyes flicked toward me as though I wasn't even standing there. "She's just background noise, nothing more than a burden." My grip on the broom tightened. Background noise. That's what I was to him. Not a daughter, not even a person. Just static. Amanda followed me inside later and tossed a crumpled brochure onto my lap. "Here, some hair treatment ads. Might help with the damage from your little fire trick." Her laugh rang out like glass shattering. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, my chest heavy with rage. I thought about the way they laughed as my hair caught fire, the way Dad dragged me by words sharper than chains, the way Mom called my silence proof of my nothingness, and Amanda perched like a queen, feeding off my suffering. I couldn't breathe in that house anymore. Every inhale felt stolen, every exhale laced with their contempt. And then it hit me. They had already killed who I was supposed to be. They had stripped me of dignity, of family, of belonging. But what they didn't realize was this. They had freed me too. I wasn't tied to their expectations anymore. I didn't need to prove my worth to people who thrived on tearing me apart. All I needed to do was wait, build, and when the time was right, strike in a way they could never recover from. It wasn't going to be about shouting at them or embarrassing them in front of neighbors at a gala or begging for recognition. No, my revenge had to pierce deeper than any public spectacle. It had to be personal, private, a quiet dismantling of everything they worshipped about themselves. Amanda thought she was untouchable because of Mom and Dad's blind favoritism. Mom thought her control was unbreakable. Dad thought his voice was law. But what if their golden world crumbled from the inside? What if I turned their own pride, their own words, into the very noose that tightened around their necks? I started taking notes. Little things. Their patterns, their secrets, the cracks in their armor they thought I didn't see. I memorized Dad's bluffs, Mom's lies, Amanda's careless mistakes. Every humiliation they threw at me became fuel. Every laugh became kindling, and deep inside, where their voices had once left me hollow, a fire began to grow again. Not the fire of candles burning my hair, a different fire. One that couldn't be laughed out, couldn't be sneered at. They had burned me once. but I was ready to burn everything they cherished without even lifting a match. The day finally came when the balance tipped. Their laughter had carried on too long, echoing off walls that seemed built to cage me. But by then, I had stopped being their captive. I had already slipped the bars in my mind. Now, all that was left was for them to realize it too. It started small. I no longer flinched when Dad barked Candlewick across the room. Instead, I looked at him in silence, a stare so sharp it unsettled him. He'd clear his throat, laugh a little louder, as if to cover up the way my gaze made him falter. Mom noticed first. She hated it. "Wipe that look off your face," she snapped one evening while we sat at the table. "You think you're better than us? You're still nothing." But I didn't answer. That was the point. My silence was no longer their entertainment. It was their mirror. Every cruel word they threw clattered uselessly against me and bounced back toward them. Amanda hated it even more. She thrived on my humiliation, but with no reaction, her jokes lost air. She threw her insults like darts at a board that no longer existed. "What's wrong with you?" she sneered, her voice rising higher with each unanswered jab. "You too stupid to even cry anymore?" I just kept eating, calm, steady, and in that moment, I knew I had found their weakness. Not public shame, not neighbors' gossip, no. Their weakness was themselves. They had built their entire power on my reactions, my suffering, my silence as a stage for their cruelty. But if I pulled the stage out from under them, what would they stand on? Nothing. That was the beginning of my revenge. I started by refusing the roles they had carved out for me. When Mom shoved the broom into my hands, I set it down. When Dad barked at me to fetch him his drink, I stayed seated. At first, they thought it was defiance they could punish away. Dad raised his hand to strike me, but this time I didn't cower. I leaned forward, eyes locked on his, and whispered, "Do it again. Show yourself what kind of man you are." His hand froze in the air, trembling. He lowered it. The silence in the room was louder than any slap. Amanda tried harder. She knocked my cup of water to the floor and waited for me to get on my knees. I looked at the spilled puddle, then at her, and slowly walked out of the room. She screamed after me, her voice breaking with fury that I didn't give her the performance she craved. Piece by piece, I dismantled the theater they had built. Without me as their target, their cruelty turned inward. Dad snapped at Mom more often. Mom hissed at Amanda. Amanda rolled her eyes at them both. They started fighting over scraps of power they used to lord over me. But I didn't stop there. I had been keeping notes all along, the lies they told, the debts they hid, the secrets they thought no one knew. Dad's unpaid bills, Mom's little thefts from neighbors she mocked behind their backs. Amanda's plagiarism at school that she boasted of as genius. Quietly, carefully, I began pulling threads. I sent anonymous tips. A copied essay left where the right teacher would see it. A creditor reminded of Dad's forgotten loan. A neighbor given proof of Mom's betrayal. I didn't need to stand in the open and point fingers. I only needed to tilt the mirror so the world could see them the way I had always seen them. The walls of their golden house began to crack. Dad's booming voice was drowned out by the sound of debt collectors at the door. Mom's smug smile vanished when whispers spread about her petty theft. Amanda's golden girl reputation crumbled when she was dragged before the dean for her stolen work. And me? I walked through it all untouched, silent, steady, unbroken. One night, I found myself standing in the living room as the three of them screamed at each other. Dad red-faced, veins bulging as he accused Mom of ruining his name. Mom shrieking back that Amanda had humiliated them all. Amanda sobbing, her shrill voice crying that none of it was her fault. I stood in the corner watching the family that had laughed as my hair burned, who had feasted while I starved, who had called me Candlewick and nothing. Now they tore each other apart with the same venom they once used on me. Finally, Amanda noticed me standing there, calm amidst their chaos. Her face twisted, desperate. "This is your fault. You did this." I smiled, just once, and whispered the only words they deserved. "No, this is you without me." because that was the truth. I hadn't given them a new enemy. I had only taken myself away. Without my suffering to bind them together, they turned on each other. Their kingdom of cruelty collapsed from the inside, and I walked out, not broken, not burnt, but blazing with a fire they could never extinguish. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video.